So my first job at CCH is my job now. I'm an RN. Right now I'm also the coordinator at West End, but I'm still the RN, the hands-on person. So I've had my first job for 33 years now. My name is Margarita Rodriguez. I'm a nurse. I came to Denver in March of 1991 and got a job at Colorado Coalition for the Homeless.
So I was 22. All of my hopes and dreams and plans had fallen apart. I was looking to do what I was going to do next, just to have something to do. I went back to a soup kitchen that I had volunteered at in college, and I ran into Mike McManus, who is still an outreach worker. He told me about an opening in this role and said probably the nicest thing he's ever said to me, which was a version of, "You wouldn't be the worst at it." My name is Kevin Raleigh. I am the Associate Director of the Department of Outreach and Engagement Services.
My name is Andre Oliver. Work for CCH Property Management. I've been working here for 3.5 years.
I never planned to be here 30 some years. It was just that it was a growing and changing organization all the time.
I'm gonna be here at CCH if the man upstairs is willing. I'm gonna be here for another 10 years. Till I retire. I love this organization. There's no place, 40 years, can you imagine, 40 years anniversary. This place has been going since 1984. 2 years after the blizzard of 82. Some people thought he wasn't even born then.
Ed Farrell. I'm a physician at Stout Street Clinic, Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. And I started working here in 1994, finished my residency in 1991, and mystery of mysteries, I ended up then checking out being a Jesuit priest from 1992 to 1993. And while I was there, I would get together and play chess with a friend of mine who was working at Stout Street, who was telling me tall tales about this Colorado Coalition for the Homeless and this woman named Darcy Meyer-Bachtel and the work that they were doing. And I just thought, that's the place that I will go if this Jesuit thing doesn't pan out. So sure enough, after I didn't stay there and called up Stout Street, had the interview, met people who were so grounded in healthcare justice, caring for people who otherwise did not get care. And it was just one of the easiest decisions in my life was to come work at CCH in 1994.
My name is Lisa Thompson. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Chief Program Officer here at the Coalition. And I started at the Coalition in 2004, so nearly 20 years. But during that time, I did leave the Coalition for about 1.5 years and came back. So I'm what they call a boomerang. Yeah, I started as the respite care manager, and I worked over at the Samaritan House homeless shelter. That's where the clinic was based at that time. And so we had our clinic inside the shelter, and then we also had the respite care program inside the shelter.
I'm Britta Fisher, and I'm the president and CEO of the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. I started here at the Coalition in 2004 and worked here through 2006, and then came back here in 2023.
My name is Alfina Christian, and I've been with CCH. In May will be 10 years. My title is front desk attendant. My husband started working here first. And then I worked for a Chaffa property, and they were selling it, so I was out of a job. So he told me to come and apply, and I got hired on. So I started at Off-Broadway as a housekeeper janitor. Me and my husband Joe commute to work together every day. It is a bunch of laughs until he says something wrong, then I don't talk because I'm mad at him.
For me, working at CCH has fed my soul. I have learned more and honestly been blessed or gifted by people who I've interfaced with more than I believe I could have ever done anything for them. I think there's a bidirectionality gift there that they may feel the same way.
When we touch other people's lives in a positive way and they recognize that, that's super important. I think that's kept me going.
One of the top reasons I wanted to come back is that this mission has always spoken to me, that we need to both prevent homelessness and create lasting solutions to homelessness. And the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless has always had this very certain spot within the spectrum of services for people experiencing homelessness. And I like that focus. I like the building of things. I like the incorporation and the integration of healthcare and supportive services. It's what we know from the evidence really works. At the time that the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless became an organization, it was really because of some of what was happening in the capital of Colorado, Denver. There were more people experiencing homelessness and being seen on the streets of Denver.
The things I think made the coalition unique at its founding is that it started as an advocacy organization and a convener of agencies committed to addressing the increase in homelessness. And that advocacy has been at the root of our mission from day one. When we advocated for what people needed, what they told us they needed when they came in our doors, and if the agencies weren't able to or willing to provide those services, whether that be mental health, addiction treatment, healthcare, or housing, we started then figuring out a way to provide it ourselves. One of the first things that the coalition was asked to do was to apply for a grant that was made available in late 1984 from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the Pew Memorial Trust to establish a Healthcare for the Homeless program.
So the original Stout Street was at 2100 Stout, and now we're at 2130 Stout, so we haven't moved very far. It was still a tiny building, if to imagine that all those services were under one roof there.
We had 5 exam rooms, 5 healthcare providers, 2 nurses, and 1 medical assistant. We had no pharmacy that was official. Our pharmacy was Margie and Carol, the 2 nurses, counting the pills. You know, there was not nearly as many healthcare for the homeless resources, agencies, and the size of all of them was quite small.
As I was the recuperative care coordinator, manager at that time, 20 years ago, and at that time we were based in a shelter. And there was a lot of limitations to having the services based in a shelter. We had to follow the rules of the shelter. There were times that people would get exited from services because they broke those shelter rules, or we couldn't accept people because of the shelter rules, and we never had enough beds. Like, we had 15 beds at that time inside Samaritan House shelter. And so we dreamed always of having this freestanding recuperative care facility.
I was part of this dramatic expansion of the CCH outreach program from a staffing total of 2 to a staffing total of 3. And that was about the time around the country where outreach as a model was starting to spring up, connected to a lot of homeless service providers. But so this is pre-Denver Street Outreach Collaborative. This is pre-Housing First. Housing navigation entailed getting a physical copy of the Denver Post or the Rocky Mountain News and opening up to the classified section. You could find a $500 to $600 apartment in Capitol Hill, or a rooming house or a boarding house room, and that's how we got, before Housing First, before everything else that has grown up around it. That's what we did.
And so we were using a tiny part of that health center originally, and slowly they began to break walls and, you know, expand to the second floor, expand a little bit to the basement, expand to a back area that had been left alone, and we ended up putting the family support services and a daycare there in the back.
We were small enough that integration was just a fact of what we did day in, day out. I think that CCH was always looking at, okay, now we need to improve our housing, get more housing. We need to improve, increase our psychiatric services, behavioral health, medical, dental, nursing, outreach. You know, we all actually all sat together in an all-staff meeting, and we all basically fit in one room, which is just so unfathomable. And these were lively, wild meetings about what should we do next.
Our documentation and outreach when I first started was just hashtag stroke marks of contacts on paper. And I think we had to write one success story, one kind of nice story about work we did per quarter. That was all of our documentation.
So as we addressed homelessness, we saw it not as an act of charity, but really as an act of justice. So social justice was, from day one, a part of what motivated me, what motivated the other staff to be able to bring our talents to address what was a growing social failure. We were able to take the skills that we had in the area of healthcare, in the area of housing, and we were entrepreneurial about it. We were able to find housing. In 1990, we were able to buy an 84-unit building that had been foreclosed on and was part of the federal savings and loan crisis. And we were able to buy it for $2,500 a unit.
When I think about that small clinic in 1984 getting started and the folks who were showing up to something new and wanting to help in a different way than had been done in our community before, I get really excited. And I hope that all of them who can still see it today are really proud of what we have accomplished in 4 decades. To see, that small clinic now be this large organization that is multifaceted and integrated and is serving 21,000 people a year. I think we're all sad that there's that level of need, but so glad that there are so many dedicated, amazing people who show up every day to assist and to create lasting solutions throughout Colorado.
Yeah, the work is rewarding, especially when you have a resident who has not had a place in years and opens the door to their first apartment. That's what's rewarding. Or if you see a resident who's trying to get their life back together. They came in with nothing and they're paying rent now. Now they have a car and they have a job and they feel that they're doing their part in society.
I think the Coalition's philosophy of service embodies what makes the Coalition special. That is a belief in the right to housing, in the right to health care, rather than that it's a privilege. And that we take those rights and we figure out a way to make it accessible to people by centering around the needs of those individuals and families.
In a wild oversimplification, there's 2 ways we can fail the people we work with. Broadly, we can overserve them and we can underserve them. And overserving often comes in the form of, well, one, it's we know better than you. We're imposing a model on you, not allowing space for a client's choice, for them to identify their own priorities and goals.
So I think it's the clients who we need to listen to say, well, not only what healthcare should look for our population, but what healthcare should look like for the American population.
So the stigma or the impact on homelessness or unhoused people is strong. There's multiple ones. I don't deserve to be seen, heard, fed, housed, and those type of things. It's hard to come out of there.
They thought that this was in some way our fault, or we were invisible, or we didn't matter, or if we were in the street and basically somebody came down the way, they would step across us as if we weren't there.
If you are trying to be useful and to help the most disconnected, the most impacted by systematic and historical inequalities, the most chronically homeless, you have to go all in on relationship.
As an advocate for the unhoused, I think the person-centered approach, how it impacts me is it makes me think that there's more care and that all these voices that aren't being heard can start using their voice.
So when you create housing for people and housing first model, and you create a mechanism for caring for people in their own home, then you're basically changing the equation from a homeless person to a person who is a vital member of our society.
I mean, as a medical professional, I think my goal is not to give people more meds or more treatments or more visits. It's to see them live as more fulfilled human beings. That should be our goal. And when they have housing and they have their plants around them and they have their cats around them and they have their video games and they're able to make a meal, that should be our goal, to help people become more fulfilled human beings.
CCH impacted my life in so many positive ways. The first way was that they helped me get housed. And at the time I had multiple traumas. They helped me with the PATH program, which helped me deal with the traumas and realize that there were traumas and that was what was going on with me. They helped me get my Social Security and get that process doing. And after I was housed, I still had traumas. I didn't know how to separate, but they helped me stay housed.
Patience, love, and a willingness to help another person. This is what CCH is about to me. So you got to have those three right there to function, to work. Doesn't matter what field you work here at CCH. Whether you're up in the high accountants, whether you're at the front desk, whether you're over at medical, whether you're a security guard, you got to be willing to do those traits right there.
The people that we serve do not have the privilege or the lived experience of being able to trust that institutions or organizations or systems or processes will do them right. But one person putting in the work can change the dynamics.
Me personally, like a lot of my residents, they're like my family, and I treat them like that. We're the front line. So if some of our residents are having a bad day, they come to us. They're not happy, they're upset, and if you say the wrong thing, they get even more upset. So sometimes I ask them, do you need a hug? And most of the times, that's what they need. And I give them a hug.
Non-judgmental, attentive presence is actually the thing that's always on the menu.
This openness to meeting people where they are is what's always grounded CCH. And we were living and breathing integration to an extraordinary degree before those words ever existed.
The work that we're doing is justice work. And I think that philosophy, in my mind, kind of changes the way that we approach the work. You can either approach this work as like, you're providing charity for poor people who can't meet their basic needs, or we're working together collectively for justice for people, and that everyone deserves housing and everyone deserves health care.
When I think about the original DNA of this organization, I see that thread of social justice. I see that thread of dedication to meeting human need and providing human dignity.
I think it all starts with us, needing to look at people and to stand in awe at what people have to carry.
And I use the word angels. They really are. And the persons who have committed themselves are those who stick with it, not just from the outreach or from the medical side, but who basically year after year after year have a sympathy and an understanding, a compassion for the inner depth of the pain and loss, the trauma that person experiences, or that family experiences, or the abuse that's taken place, or the racial injustice that's occurred, and actually then wades in and helps them to come forth and to be born again in that sense of beginning their life